My sister and I share a two-bedroom apartment in the city. We both knew we needed to get out of our parents' house, but couldn't afford to do it separately on our own. She and I are lucky, though. We were practically best friends as well as siblings, so living with her was easy. The apartment was close to campus as well as work, so we always had an easy walk to and from where we needed to be. Life was pretty wonderful on our own until the pandemic hit. At first, we thought it was a joke like the swine flu had been, so we carried on with our everyday lives. It wasn't until we got into lockdown that things started to get weird. The first few days of the pandemic lockdown weren't too bad. We baked banana bread, attempted making sourdough bread, failed miserably, and played board games together. Because we had such conflicting schedules, the forced pause helped us get even closer as siblings. It also gave us a real opportunity to breathe for the first time since moving out on our own. After several weeks, school and work had completely stopped for both of us, so we were beginning to struggle to find things to do. We tried art projects but lost interest easily. Then we tried more baking, but the COVID-19 was creeping in on us rapidly. One day, we decided we would really take it to the next level and read the phone book. You heard me right. The dang phone book. Somehow, our apartment building had provided them to everyone. What a waste of money, I thought. But at this point, I was desperate for anything to pass the time. Grabbing the white pages, I began at the A's and worked down from there. Robert Abernathy, Marvin Adams, Vicky Bates, Charlotte Bauer. I even came across Batman, C. Adam West. I worked my way through the pages, going through most of the alphabet until I got to the M's. David Markson. David Markson. David Markson! Okay, I really need to go to bed, I said out loud. By then, it was close to 1 a.m., so I closed the phone book and set it on the coffee table. I could barely keep my eyes open, but I had successfully burned through another day in quarantine. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon as my phone started to ring on my nightstand, waking me from my already restless slumber. There was no name or number on the caller ID, so I pressed ignore and rolled back over. Scam callers were just going to have to wait. The phone rang again with the same unknown ID. This must be important if they were going to keep calling this early. Groggily rolling over, I grabbed my phone and grumpily said, "Hello?" Holding the phone to my ear, I listened carefully to see if I could hear anything. Breathing. But not just any breathing. The breath was like that of a large beast. I shake my head trying to wake up and press the phone closer to my ear. "Hello?" I ask again, only to be met by the same breathing. I waited for a few moments to see if the person would reply before hanging up in annoyance. Now awake with no chance of falling back to sleep, I rolled out of bed and headed to the kitchen to start making coffee. I knew I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep after what I had heard. I knew this pandemic was starting to get to people, but making caged animals breathe into the phone was a bit much. The smell of coffee drifted my way, distracting me from my thoughts. After doing my normal morning routine of breakfast and coffee, I headed to the shower to start another day stuck at home. Several hours went by as my sister and I played board games to pass the time. In the middle of a game of Parcheesi, my phone sitting by my side began to ring. The student library I had been working at was calling to let me know that I could come pick up my final check for the hours I had worked prior to the lockdown, and to pick up my furlough paperwork to file with unemployment. I was almost jumping for joy to be able to leave the house for something other than food and necessities. Since I knew my sister was restless as I was, I asked her to join me as it was only a 10-minute walk and the weather was nice. Strolling past the cafes and local hangouts that were now closed, I was reminded of brighter times. I was hoping the library had some light to shine on when we may be heading back to work, or if I even still had my student job anymore. When we arrived, I walked up to the receptionist area and was greeted by the head librarian. Unfortunately, she had nothing but bad news for me as she handed me my last check and paperwork. She told me that someone would be in touch as soon as they had more information, but as it stood, I was unemployed. Walking through the door back at home with my head hanging low in disappointment, I noticed the phone book on the coffee table. There was a black substance oozing out of it and sticking to the table as the puddle got bigger. Thinking I had spilled my soda from earlier, I quickly jumped into action before I could ruin the table further. Pulling up the phone book and seeing the slime-like substance, my phone in my pocket began to ring again, startling me. Same unknown caller ID. I answer irritated. Hello? Are you going to say something this time? Again, there was a heavy growling breath, but this time he answered me. You dare speak my name, child. I was deep in my slumber when I was roused by the thrice speaking of my name. As I have been hibernating for some time now, you can imagine that I'm very hungry. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but this isn't funny. Stop calling me. Oh, this is no joke, my dear. The substance you see leaking from the phone book you are holding is the essence of who I am. I needed someone to speak my name in order for me to be released to prey on fresh hosts. I'll be seeing you soon. With that, the line went dead. My face turned as white as a ghost, and the wind was knocked out of me. I collapsed to the ground as my sister attempted to catch me. Blake. Oh my God, Blake! What just happened? My sister said to me as she frantically ran over to me. Riley, someone on the other end of the phone said they were coming for me. It sounded so real. Then it felt like someone punched me in the gut. I knew that the conversation had happened, but it was like it had happened in a dream instead of reality. I couldn't wrap my head around the creature seeking me out, and for what purpose. Something must have been wrong with me. I could still feel the heavy presence pushing down on me. All I wanted to do was fall asleep, but I was afraid that if I fell asleep, I would never wake back up. We need to get you over to the couch. Can you crawl there? Riley asked. Yes, I can as long as I take it slow. Riley sat with me for a long time as we talked about how I was feeling and what had happened. My sister was always so kind to me, even when I didn't deserve it. She always kept such a watchful eye on me, and now more than ever, I was grateful for it. At this moment, I was scared, but thanks to Riley, I wasn't alone. The heavy feeling was starting to lift, and I was able to breathe again, but that sinking feeling never left me. I had a feeling that this wasn't a dream. I had a feeling that this thing would be coming for me. I had managed to get myself into bed and told Riley she was okay to leave me alone. Only one of us needed to suffer with no sleep tonight. I laid with my head on the pillow and stared at the ceiling. After several hours, I could feel my eyes begin to get heavy as I finally drifted off to sleep. The imagination can do crazy things to our minds. It can take us to distant places our waking minds cannot. I began to dream about the sweetest dreams, which were soon replaced by nightmares. In my dream state, I was lying in a bed in the middle of a dark room with no other furniture around. It was peaceful and quiet. A thick fog began to roll in as a figure of a well-dressed man approached my side. With a flick of a match, he lit a candle he was holding. The flickering candlelight revealed the man's horrid face. With a menacing grin from ear to ear, he began to whisper, "Thank you for releasing me." Not another word came from his mouth as he turned and walked away. Paralyzed in fear, I attempted to force myself to wake up. Shaking my head and wrestling myself awake, my eyes shot open as a rough, wet tongue slithered its way up the side of my face. I was met with the face of a bloodthirsty beast that had long horns and a sour disposition. I could feel its every breath as it continued to size me up for its dinner. I had read about these creatures in a book of lore. This was a Wendigo, a creature that had once been a man. A wealthy but greedy man that at one point had turned to cannibalism of his mates to survive. This must have been who I had seen in my dreams. The creature opened its mouth wide and sunk its teeth deep into my throat. The sharp points tore away at my flesh and opened up the artery in my neck. I could feel as the creature tore away at the flesh in my neck and stretching it beyond its limit before finally tearing it completely away. The blood began to gush down the back of my throat, and panic started building in my chest as I began suffocating on my own blood. The final blow was given as the creature's hands reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. The last thing I remember was the menacing growl of the creature as it had finally found its first prey after years of hibernation. I had many plans for my life after this pandemic was over. I was going to finish college, settle into a career, find a life partner, and possibly have a child of my own. I thought of Riley as my eyes went black and my soul left my body. She would be alone in the world now without me. I can only hope that the creature didn't go for her next and was satisfied with me. I guess I'll never know.